right? There's lots of ways that people can collect enough data to prove that a piece of Bitcoin blockchain belongs to you, right? So as a general rule of thumb, I would say, if you think you're using Bitcoin anonymously today, if you're not, assume that it's already been exposed, and if it hasn't yet, it will be very, very soon. Now, why is this a problem? Well, we can talk about why privacy is important. Maybe that'd be an interesting conversation topic for a lot of philosophical reasons. I tend to think privacy is basic, right? But even if you don't believe that, this is a problem for anything trying to be truly digital cash, truly money. And the reason is for something called, see another word here? Fungibility. Well, I don't know that too, but who said fungibility? All right, what is fungibility?
Just the idea that any one unit is worth a different amount than a unit essentially the same amount.
Exactly. So if I have $2 bills and I give you $1 bill and we trade them, there's no way to tell those two different dollar bills apart. If I give you a $1 bill and you give it to every other person in this room with some randomly determined algorithm, there's no way I can go back and figure out how that $1 bill traveled. With Bitcoin, it is a specific piece of blockchain that you can track, right? Which means it's not fungible. And to me, this is dangerous. There's less nefarious ways, but it's dangerous because it actually risks censorship resistance. Why does it risk censorship resistance? Well, if I have Bitcoin and I send it to someone else, technologically, no one can stop me from sending that Bitcoin. But they can do some social things. There's some social engineering involved, right? So if someone says, okay, cool, this Bitcoin that Matt is trying to send to his homie Dan over here is tainted. And maybe he was using a dark market that I never even touched, but I just happened to get this piece of Bitcoin in my hand. All of a sudden, anyone that accepts this Bitcoin from me can have some sort of a social cost, like paying a fine or some other kind of penalty, which is a way of subtly censoring the ability to have commerce, right? So fungibility is critical. Forget all of the philosophical arguments, which I think are very important, but purely from a fungibility perspective. And that is where Monero comes in. So if you were designing the ideal digital cash today, there are a few properties that you would want this to have. Number one, you want it to be decentralized, which means you don't have any central entity that can control the supply. Again, this is a general caveat I think it's really important. So I just spent the last 3.5 years living down in Mexico. And when I talk to folks in the US or the West about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general, people are always like, it's not that big of a deal that we have a central bank or whatever that's issuing currency. And the truth is, for us in the West, it really hasn't been recently. I mean, you can make the argument that 2% inflation compounding year over year is a problem. But the reality is our financial system more or less reached the debt us. You go down to Latin America, you don't need to, right? You go to Venezuela right now, they have insane inflation. Your paper is literally worth less than the paper it would cost to burn right now. And all of a sudden you realize having something decentralized for billions of people who don't have access to the kind of financial system that we do is extremely important. Number two, you would want it to be private for fungibility. Just talked about that. Number three, you would want it to be digital so that you can move vast quantities of it without having to worry about hauling big giant hunks of gold. Digital, that's Bitcoin, but not private. And then you have private and digital, which is cash. You have the physical version and the digital version of cash. But the first digital cash we've ever truly had, in my opinion, is Monero. And that is because it is private by default, which means it is fungible by default. And we'll touch back on this idea of private by default. It's extremely important. Cool. This is kind of funny. I just want to show you this. If you guys has everyone seen a block explorer before for Bitcoin? Yeah, if you haven't, there's Monero block explorers. I always think this is amusing. They have rich lists listed there. If you click on the rich list, it'll do this because there's hundreds. So I think that just goes to show that. Did you guys also see there was some, I forget if it was an FBI report, some kind of investigation where it said, okay, we've seized, X amount of Zcash, X amount of Bitcoin, X amount of Dash, and an unknown quantity of Monero. Has everyone seen that? No, that's great. Yeah, it's awesome. I'll see if I can dig that up. But it just goes to show you, this is the real deal. Okay, so how does Monero work? These slides I'm about to use, these are courtesy of Justin Ehrenhofer, who is a Monero member. I used them from his GitHub repository. He made very nice slides. Some of them are a bit dated, so I'll try and give you guys the update, but this will give you an idea of how Monero works. So Monero achieves privacy or anonymity through 4 core technologies. It obscures the sender through ring signatures. It obscures the amount being sent through ring transactions or ring CTs. It obscures the receiver through stealth addresses, and soon it will obscure IP addresses of all the nodes in the network through Covert, which is a version of the I2P router, which is something similar to Tor, if you guys aren't familiar with I2P. So how does that work? Let's start with ring signatures. If I send Bitcoin to someone else in this room, I have to have what's called an unspent transaction output, or UTXO. And if I have UTXO, that is a specific piece of the Bitcoin blockchain where I say, look, I've got this UTXO, and now I'm going to send a transaction to, what's your name? Moy. Moy. I'm going to send a transaction to Moy. I have 1 Bitcoin, I want to send Moy 0.1 Bitcoin. So I'm going to send you 0.1 Bitcoin, and then I'm going to send myself 0.9 Bitcoin back to my change address, right? But everyone can see the UTXO that I used to send that Bitcoin. In Monero, there is no such thing as UTXO. In Monero, there is simply a TXO, transaction output. And you cannot tell which of these TX IDs are spent and which are unspent, right? So in this case, the way a ring signature works, this was actually the old days. Now there's a minimum ring size of 7. So the red would be my transaction ID. That's my piece of Monero blockchain I want to send to someone else. And the other, that should be 6, are just equals, right? But an outside observer would not be able to tell the difference between the red and the light blue. To them, they would all look the same.
What are the green?
The green are just random transactions that weren't. Like this is the sea of all possible transactions that exist in Monero, all the TXIDs, and we randomly selected 7.
So they're not other transactions happening, otherwise they're just sort of like...
Yes, so think about it like this. If we have a ledger and there's a million transactions on there, I take my TXID, which I know is mine, I take 6 other that I pull more or less from random, at random, and they're continuing to prove that algorithm and how they do that. And then I take those 7 together, and I create a signature such that all 7 are involved in creating that signature, and no one can say, oh, the red one is Max's ID. Does that make sense? Cool. And so this is really cool technology, but it's admittedly the weakest point of Monero's privacy. And it's the weakest point of privacy for a couple of reasons. There was a paper maybe some of you guys saw a couple of months ago. There's actually a couple of these saying, oh, Monero's not actually private. You can guess which TXIDs are being used. Did everyone see that? If you did, basically this is what they were talking about. There's a couple of different claims they made. I think the strongest claim is they said people tend to, there's like, again, some social engineering. People tend to spend TXIDs they get pretty quickly. So if you see that a TXID is 2 years old and another one is only like 12 hours old, the probability is much greater that it's the 12-hour-old one than the 2-year-old one. And so the Monero Research Labs have done a lot of great work. They're trying to figure out how to improve the algorithms by which they select these TXIDs at random. And I think there's a lot more to go there. There's been a couple of talks. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we use, I think right now, a triangular distribution where it selects, I think, 50% of your inputs from the last, it basically says like, it may have been 2 days. They select some percentage of the inputs based on how far in time they are. So just to get rid of the statistical possibility that you can determine what the address is. So you'll see a bunch of things that are, oh yes, we're spending 3 addresses from 3 addresses that were created within the past 12 hours. And that can create more plausible reliability.
Right. So is the distribution centered around like when the actual transaction output that you're sending?
It should be independent of that, because if you could, otherwise you could work that. The distribution selection I think is independent of whatever the particular output is. There's some complications because if you have multiple different outputs that you're trying to spend at the same time, you can start getting, oh, hey, well, these 2 transactions were both created within the same window of time. Maybe these are related. So there's still some work to be done there, but all in all, it works pretty well.
And I think that's actually like a really good sort of meta point there, is that there's no such thing as like private currency or privacy period. It's always like a spectrum. There's no such thing as private or not private. So if you get it better, and then someone else, like a cat and mouse game, someone else finds something in this here.
So let's say like you have some sequence of events that you know happen. They just get all the transactions are about all the events. And the one that's in common will probably be the one that you're.
So the assumption that you make there is every single one of those events is made using consecutive addresses, whereas some of the spends could be from a transaction that I got a month ago from person A. Other parts of those spends could have come from person C. You don't know where the particular inputs came from. If you know, like, for example, if I send you some Monero, and I know that that's the only Monero that you have, and I also know you spent it at 4 different particular points of time, you can pick that out, but that's not the usual assumptions that you're operating under.
Right. Yeah. So you have to have like some kind of insider knowledge of that.
What's the cost of this? Is it computational power?
Well, it's a larger blockchain. You're storing more information.
So it's a larger ledger than
Yeah.
Oh, the question is, do you have the same problem that blockchain or Bitcoin and others do have, where people mine and don't report, where the miners aren't your friend? Are you seeing that issue? People mine and then because they're waiting to be able to carpet bomb to get consensus. Are you seeing things like that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So on Bitcoin right now, part of the reason 30% of them are a lot of people have a lot of computing power. They'll mine a lot of blocks. They'll be close to each other and they won't report them.
Right.
But they know they're going to report them later to knock out others mining the blocks. There's great thing our buddy of ours just did at Google about 2 weeks ago on this. Check out the Medium post from Keep on this. So that literally, because if you can get consensus, you can rewrite things. That's what happened on Ethereum twice. The people got consensus and they just basically stole their own money. Because you can change the rules if you get consensus. In fact, the last research we saw at the thing on this, look at the Bitcoin developers meetup, it speaks about how you can add 28 to 30%, get 51% depending on your mining structure. So it's a real issue about consensus and trust. So
yeah, exactly. And that is a concern, generally speaking, with Monero, is that it is a larger blockchain, or as it grows over time, if once it reaches like the same level of distribution that Bitcoin has today, it would be a much larger blockchain. They're doing a lot of stuff to help improve that. So recently, I don't know if you guys saw, there's a big debate about ASICs. These are like special fork to avoid that, to avoid the current ASICs from being able to mine this. They're working on something called, we'll talk about this in a minute, bulletproofs to reduce the amount of data being stored on a blockchain. So I think the Monero project is making a lot of really forward-looking steps to keep mining distributed. But that said, I mean, this is a challenge every single crypto project is going to face.
Yeah, I mean, and what happens when we have consumer quantum computers? What happens when we have someone deploying an open source, SSD-enabled, optimized VM that writes 1,000x faster on every computer that gets bored by an actual hacked system? Like, you could do what they did to the IoT hack and say, you guys mine for me in memory in the browser cache on phones around the world and fucking eat the world. So that's the type of things that the algorithmic high-frequency traders are running into.
Yeah.
And you can distribute that across all these devices getting bored. It's a real issue, but it's good because it means people like China can never win because there's enough computing power outside their country that they can't take consensus from the world.
Yeah, I would say in general, to your point there, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I think when you're talking about like what's going to happen in the future with quantum computing or anything in general, the reality is that's going to be a challenge for not only like every blockchain in the world, but every like financial system period.
Yeah.
So I think once we get closer and closer to that, we're going to have the ability to hard fork towards something that is more quantum resistant. That's my guess. But if anyone else has comments on that later, maybe that's something to talk about. Cool. So the next thing I want to talk about really quickly is ring CDs. This is basically what obscures your transaction amount. So what's cool about this is that in the past, when we were doing ring signatures, you could only have rings that were made up with quantities of the same quantities of Monero. So you could only have a ring that everyone had transactions worth 5 XMR. But with ring CTs, it's cool because now you can hide the amount of Monero, which means you can have rings with different quantities of Monero in there. And the way that this works is all of this comes back to using elliptic curves. So we can talk about the math afterwards. That's interesting to folks. But basically, what you do is you come and you say, cool, I'm going to make a commitment. I'm going to make some commitment to a number. And you're not going to know what I'm going to commit to taking some amount of Monero on the blockchain and transferring that, but you don't know what that amount of Monero is. And so what you can do is you can go back and check and say, look, it's like a mass balance equation. Is the amount of Monero on this side the same as the amount of Monero on the other side? If so, then this person sent the amount they said they were going to send. And then you also have to use something called a range proof, which basically checks to make sure that you're not using negative numbers in that commitment. Because if you're using negative numbers, you could create an unknown or like an unlimited amount of Monero in the process. And when I mentioned bulletproofs earlier, the whole point of bulletproofs is to do that range proof, but reduce the amount of data you need. And in doing so, what I've read is that it's going to be able to reduce about 80% of the data that we store in a Monero transaction.
85% when you have five ring numbers and it increases the increase.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, even more.
It's O login and not even O event as you increase the number.
Okay.
So it's even changes there.
And how close are we? That should be released.
Yeah. So we just had, I think right now we're waiting on the audits that we paid for. The Monero research talked about the meeting that happened this morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I can go and print some information.
And it's live on the testnet already.
Yeah, you can take me back to test it out. So
if any of you guys want to, it's live on the testnet right now. In the next.
This isn't theoretical. This is like actually, we're trying to figure out the best.
which is badass because if you guys have heard of confidential transactions, this came from Greg Maxwell talking about.
Where do we look for it?
The fact that it's
What's the
here
link we look for it?
first.
This is bulletproof.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's bulletproof Monero. Sweet. So then the last current piece of the privacy is called stealth addresses. And all stealth addresses is instead of sending, okay, if I take Bitcoin, I send it to your Bitcoin address, great, max it to this Bitcoin address. In Monero, you don't send it to a specific address. In Monero, every single transaction goes to a one-time address. And you can think of these one-time addresses as one-time use burner phones or single-use security deposits that are never ever used again. And this is a big deal because that means every time I send someone, like you can't go back and say, oh, this address has received Bitcoin or Monero over and over again. It's every single transaction has a unique address. And the way that works is, again, using the code, you take someone's public keys that they give you for their Monero address, and then you use those to generate a one-time stealth address that only the person on the other side, with their private view key, can scan the blockchain and say, oh, this is my security deposit box. And just as a general rule, if you guys, who here has downloaded the entire Monero blockchain before? It takes a super, super, super long time, because it's a lot of data, but also because you're scanning the entire blockchain to say, there's no hack here. You say, okay, I have my private view keys. I use those private view keys to look through the entire blockchain and see if there's any security deposit box that's set out for me. That takes a long time. Any questions so far?
Actually, I think scanning time was just improved by 80%.
Seriously? In the last one?
No, this most recent release, just improved scanning time.
Sweet. Yeah, I did notice that. I had to buy some actions. I had to reload the blockchain, so it did go faster. Cool. And then the last thing is something called Kovri. Kovri, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Tomato, tomato, I suppose. And this is essentially implementation of an I2P router, which is something very similar to Tor, which basically it puts a second network on top of the internet that you're running, and basically allows instead of feeding out an IP address, it gives a sort of dummy address that no one can trace back to you. So the idea is in the future, this is what I love about Monero. Monero is a tank, right? It's got the ring signatures, the sender can't be seen. It's got the stealth address, so the recipient can't be seen. It's got the ring CT, so the amount can't be seen. And oh yeah, just in case your IP address is leaked, they're working on a way to clone that as well.
Is this for Monero?
No, we're developing this for the greater cryptocurrency community, and in fact, this
Someone wants to know if there's beer here.
technology works best. We have a giant price. So we would actually be
So is this just I2P?
They want
Yeah, this is C++ applications. Yes, it's entirely open source.
And you can use this for other kind of internet traffic too, right?
Not just cryptocurrency, but we're developing it as a gift.
That's awesome. And that's another, just as a I know something I love about Monero is it's a community. Oh, please, everyone, yeah. This is awesome. I love things with Monero. This is being developed as a gift for the community, as he was just saying, which is awesome because Monero has that ethos of being much children for us and others.
What are the downside of doing Kovri?
Oh, it's a lot slower. You get a ton of overhead. I probably put it on the order of 7 times or so, maybe.
Can you talk some more?
Though it increases in bandwidth, the more nodes that exist. So as more people start using it, the bandwidth actually increases. You're going to have to actually talk to an animal. I am a bit fuzzy in the actual specifics of Kovri at this point.
So when you say increased bandwidth, is it increasing sockets? Is it increasing connections?
It increases the amount of traffic that you're able to send to the network. Basically, when you run a Kovri node, it constantly has a baseline amount of traffic that's being sent over the network.
Oh, so it uses some of the part of it, just like we do with the networks. Part of it goes. So yeah, I'm a Cisco guy at Boulder Regional Labs. Yeah, that means that's actually a smart way to do it. It's almost like the government channel on every network.
So just run a Kovri node, and if you actually do need to do something that has privacy, you can say, oh, well, I'm just running my node like usual.
So it doesn't give you data about metadata about changes.
You're only using this at these points in time. This is
very good.
So exciting.
What was your question? Can you please talk more about I2P?
What is it?
I2P.
Oh, yeah. So again, I'm not a super expert here. You may have some more context on this, but essentially this was developed as this was supposed to be similar to Tor. It uses something called, so how many of you guys are familiar with Tor? So Tor uses something called garlic routing. I2P, to the best of my knowledge, is something called, Tor is ring routing. Exactly. I2P is something called, garlic routing and garlic encryption. And basically what that means is that if I'm sending data to you, and when I if I'm sending data to you, think about if I have like a globe of garlic, and each of those mini globes is a single message. So I say, okay, I have some data, I'm going to send it to you, and I have instructions to send this to you, and you pick off your globe. When you pick off your globe, it all then unlocks the next set of instructions. It says, great, now I'll send him the next set, the next globe. But you can't see the directions, so you can go back to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if maybe afterwards that could be another topic maybe we're on, but as he said, there's a guy called Nominal who's leading this whole
If anybody
project.
wants to know more about IGP, let me know, and we can contact with the people that actually know what we're talking about.
Cool.
Hey, I'd like to see that in discussion around the tool you guys just mentioned earlier, because I'll come to the reading group, but I'm definitely interested in that.
Yeah, and maybe we could do like an IGP focus meetup in the future. If that's something of interest, we could do a whole session just on incorporating IGP, trying to get your own time. Okay, so I think I would be reticent not to at least mention a few alternatives. People always talk about privacy coins out there. Obviously, I'm biased, as Monero sure. With that said, Monero is not the only project that's working towards privacy. There's a couple other, I think, major ones that are worth mentioning. The first is Bitcoin itself. People have come up with all kinds of ways to analyze Bitcoin. The most popular that have been around for a long time are trusted third parties. These are basically mixers. You guys heard of CoinJoin, something like that. Basically, the idea is, hey, these four folks over here, they all have Bitcoin. I'm a centralized service. I say, let me take a little bit of your Bitcoin. I'll mix them all for you. Give me the addresses. I'll mix them and send them to someone else, such that your recipients, there's no way to tell which piece. There's no way to tell like a fourth of their coins reach use for all four of their recipients. So there's no way to tell. Oh, he was paying her, she was paying him, etc. Does that make sense? The challenge with this is twofold, threefold. Really. One is that most of these servers are centralized. So if you're using one of these services, there's a good chance they're logging your data. If they get hacked, just being at your risk. The second is that this actually just raises red flags in and of itself. Because it's not privacy by default, this is a huge point I cannot stress enough, the theme for all the alternatives. If it is not privacy by default, you are always going to raise red flags if you use one of these services, right? Because people are going to be like, well, why are you using a mixer? There's a set of 1,000 transactions, only 100 went through this mixer. Why are you using it, right? And it's like, well, actually, I'm just, I don't know, I'm paying for my sister's whatever, bar mitzvah or something. But they have no way of knowing what you're doing. So in general, I don't think this is a great solution. Screws up fungibility. Exactly, screws up fungibility. In general, and this is true for all of these, with the exception of Wimble, for the other three, if privacy is not default, it screws up your fungibility, full stop. Does that mean Bitcoin can't, try and tackle privacy on the base layer in the future? No, I would hope they do. And there are people that are really focused on that. But until they do, I haven't seen a great solution. Just so you guys know, if you all have heard of Lightning Network, which Samsung hosting a group on, that does add some privacy as well. Lightning route, they use onion routing, similar to Tor. But the challenge there is, again, off ramps, on ramps. If there is a point where you are not fungible and you try to go to fungibility, you come on and off that.
That's why mobile security is great on your phone, but actually at the network level, when they go from the network, which is owned by somebody else, and the radios, people, if they get enough packets, can break your shit or just clone the fucking cell phone tower and take your phone IMEI.
Yeah,
so it's called the last mile problem, just like with the internet, and the first mile problem for security.
I thought I said my phone turned off whenever I'm just near you generally.
Well, I help run the Google developer group.
Knowledge just generally makes me.
Well, I broke the web protocol. You should be happy because I'm one of the guys who actually kept your shit.
I'm so glad you're on the good team.
Hey, I don't trust.
You're on the Rebel Alliance and not on the fucking dark side.
Dude, no, I come from a military family. We can't trust those guys.
Yeah,
no, for real.
Exactly.
Like literally, we got out Chelsea because we told the Trump guys coming in and the idiot Obama guys going out, oh, she's been doing research on quantum. You need her on our side of the team and not in jail. And they both went for it. True story.
Okay. Okay, so to wrap this up with the alternatives, Dash. Dash, honestly, I'm not that excited about Dash. Everyone's familiar with Dash here. It's supposed to be much more scalable. They essentially have their own built-in coin join, but uses centralized nodes to do that. And again, it's not anonymous by default. Zcash is actually really cool. I think Zcash technology is probably going to change the world at some point. ZK Snarks. With ZK Snarks, you can hide sender, recipient, and amount. The challenge with is, for me at least, is with Zcash as a coin. The technology is very new. So in general, I mean, I'm not a photographer, so I have to listen to folks who think are smarter than myself. One of the big lessons I've kind of taken away is only trust something when it's been in the wild, right? And so every technology that Monero uses has been around for a long time. This is relatively new, so let's see how it works over the next decade. In general, with Zcash, there's a trusted setup involved that does not put the privacy at risk, but in theory, the people that were involved in that private setup ceremony, if they were able to collude together, could print basically unlimited amount of Zcash, and no one could know that. Now, I have no reason I don't know the people at Zcash, but everyone I met there seems like a generally good person, and I have no reason to suspect they would. But in my mind, the point of cryptocurrency is not that, not to have to trust human beings. And finally, it's not default privacy. So again, they're going to probably change that. When they do, great. But until they do, default privacy means fungibility, not default, not fungible, right? The last thing that's at least worth mentioning here is Mimblewimble. Who's heard of Mimblewimble before? So Mimblewimble is really exciting. It's a new protocol that basically uses cut-throughs and confidential transactions to allow for a lot of privacy, not as much privacy as Monero, but way more scalability. Because you can store just kernels of information instead of all the transactions with the store of Bitcoin or Monero. So it's way more scalable.
But you still have a sync time, no? Like I've tried to read about Wimble, and they don't discuss the sync time in the storage space. I think
That's
the
a great
sync time
question.
is significantly actually the problem,
Really?
not the storage space.
I didn't know that. That would make sense. So basically,
You
like,
can't verify the chain unless you
Actually.
go through every single transaction.
so that's a great point. We should do a future Mimblewimble and have a much longer discussion on that. But his point is basically like, if you're storing, you may store a lot less data, but still need just as much time to watch. Anyways, so this is really promising. There's a project called Brain you guys can check out that I think is really interesting. That's going to be piloting this.
I think I'd like to add up that in Zcash.
Whoa.
Yeah, if you go to Zk stars, then the setup, the process setup.
Yeah, and that's true. And again, like I think Zcash is really cool. If they end up doing that in the future, in general, I like Monero because I like the community and the values. So if there's a better project in the future, I'm to name it. See what the cover is for those of you who want to get involved. How can you get involved with Monero? All right. So how do you buy Monero? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can go from US dollar. So if you want to go from fiat to Monero, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Kraken's one of the big exchanges that allows you to do this. To my knowledge, it's one of the only USD exchanges where you can do this today. Abra, which is an app like Coinbase, they actually just announced Monero last week, 2 weeks ago. That's a big fucking deal because that Abra is being used to onboard more sort of mainstream users, not like the super hardcore super users. So I think Abra is going to crush it with that. Local Monero is pretty interesting. You guys know local Bitcoin? It's the same like concept. If you want to get Monero peer-to-peer cash transactions, have someone send you money in the mail, whatever, you can use that. Shapeshift is cool if you already have Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. It's a really simple protocol to use to just take your Bitcoin and turn it into Monero. It's a bit pricier, but it's really easy. And XMR.to is not really how to buy, but this is a really cool, simple service. If you say, hey, I want to buy something and they only take Bitcoin, I have Monero.
Sorry. So the Warriors just signed Boogie Collins and All-Star. So they're like, we think Kaepernick's going to get signed by the Warriors.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, like it's game over. Like that season is over. They
All right, well,
yeah.
Boogie's on their team. Maybe they paid for him with XMR.to. Who knows?
Well, you know, they're owned by a venture fund.
He took the mid-level, so yeah, they're probably paying like the extra like, $20 million.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, because 20% of the Warriors are owned by the guy Ken Coleman, who's a billionaire black guy who started Symantec. So I would not be surprised at all. That's part of why these guys are coming. They want to invest in startups.
Absolutely. That's actually a very good point. So XMR.to, I recommend you guys check that out. How to store and use it. There's a couple ways you get started. I highly recommend you go to getmonero.org to download the full GUI. It's going to take you a long time. You have two options. If you download the entire blockchain to run a full node, which is what I recommend, there's something now called Bootstrap node that you can use, which is pretty sweet, where you can point to a remote node while you're downloading the whole blockchain. That's awesome to get you up and running. Over time, I recommend running a full node for maximum privacy, but be aware it takes a lot of hard drive space. And it's like 70 gigs or 65 gigs?
I think it's about 50 right now.
Well, it's a lot of space. I saw like this giant block of space for hard drive. What the hell is this? Oh, Monero. If you want a lighter weight wallet, my Monero is great for Android or for the web. Cake wallets on Mac. Monero, I don't even know how to say that. But Huh?
I think it's Monterujo.
Monterujo, thank you.
And Edge Wallet, the old Airbits, just started supporting Monero.
Oh, cool, I didn't know that. So Edge Wallet's on there. Also, Globy is a really sweet service if you want to accept Monero. Who here has like a side hustle, a business, their own online shop? Anyone? This is San Francisco, come on guys. Well, if you don't, you should start one if for no other reason than to accept Monero because it's so cool. And on that note, I just want to give you guys a little plug. This is my own little fun side project. See this cool shirt here? I decided.
That's an awesome. I really like that shirt.
We'll discuss this. We decided, we want to have more cool Monero gear out there. You should be able to rep, but rep with something interesting and unique. So I started a fun little project with my dad. My dad's a designer here. He's a super dope animator artist called xrgear.com. I'm proud because you can buy it with Monero. Similarly, Project Coral Reef has all kinds of old school gear. Project Coral Reef is sweet because they have a discount for Monero. Monero users. I'm going to try and figure that out as well. I'm not that sophisticated yet. And they have a percentage of their whatever you buy there that goes towards the basic crowdfunding system for Monero. So if you guys are at all interested in experimenting with accepting Monero, what's really important is that we get more merchants using accepting Monero. Once people start using this in their daily lives, that's when things can go wrong.
That's what Ripple Labs did. They fucking let everybody through Ripple Labs accept it. They gave away initially even after Google around. Like it's the best thing you do. Make it easy. And the GoAbra guys are killing it.
They're awesome, dude. Abra's
no, they're making billions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like they didn't even raise. I know the guys, my boy runs growth over there, full disclosure. Like they basically have enough money. What they do is they're like PayPal, except instead of just saying your money's here and over there, they put stock quotes and puts and gets. And they're making so much money letting you buy and sell as a way of money transferring legally around the world.
Yeah.
So they even have last mile, first mile, where someone will come pick up money, physical money from you and put it on the chain or bring you money anonymously. Anywhere in the world where there's a financial market.
And that's a very powerful point. What are you talking about? This is
GoAbra. Yeah, they have the app for it. Now just as soon as they put it on the chain, it's under their insurance. You don't have to worry about it.
And what's sweet about it is they got started in the developing world. So what you're talking about, the tellers, like in the Philippines, you can literally just like take like a bunch of cash to a dude.
So my boy actually built the team that actually helped our guys over at what's it called? The ones who grab taxi, who kick fucking Uber's ass in the Southeast Asia. Like literally doing this for casinos and mobile payments. Like people will be like, and they would pay them like Uber does for Surge. We want to use the $30 in your wallet. We'll pay you $3 just to make it available to whoever needs to and walk over there and give them the cash. Or walk over and pick up the cash, which in America is called money laundering, isn't it? But that's great because they use the financial markets to make it legal. So that was a super badass hack.
Cool. So if you guys want to learn more about Abra, it's like really it's exciting.
No, I'm just saying in case you need to move money around.
Yeah. Anyway, no comment.
It's legal.
Yes. So maybe we'll do a couple quick questions, and I want to let everyone react to the Yeah.
How was Monero launched, and was it pre-mined, and is there a foundation that already holds X percentage on it?
So Monero was launched with a giant pre-mine by a guy called Fluffy Pony. Yeah, joking. So Monero initially.
Damn, that would have been a good name. It's better than Satoshi.
No, his name is actually Fluffy.
It's a real guy.
That's actually the real guy. No, for real. Yeah. Saying that out loud like hurts my soul a little
Damn.
bit. Like,
Why not?
That's
a good name.
Go follow him. And Max is making a joke because
I'm a burner. We love good names.
Fluffy Pony is sort of the reluctant leader of Monero. He's a great guy to follow. Just excellent YouTube videos. He's super informative, and he's very, very pessimistic on the future of Monero, which is kind of hilarious. But I'll let Max pick up.
Yeah, well, exactly. So Fluffy Pony is kind of the default leader, I would say, but he did not launch there. So that was a joke. Please do not report that. So the crypto protocol was dropped in white paper anonymously by a guy called Nicholas von Saberhagen or Saberhagen, whatever. That was back, I think, in 2013. Then there was a project called Monero. So initially, the original version, I think it was called, the original implementation of Bitcoin was the original implementation of crypto protocol. And that did have a massive pre-mine. This is cool technology, but we're not gonna mess with this. But then someone came forward and said, I think there was a guy called Grateful for Today, and said, hey, we're gonna redo this. We're gonna relaunch as Monero. Same technology, it was relaunched fairly. And then everyone was on board and saying, hey, this is really cool. And then apparently that guy was not willing to work much with the community. So Fluffy Pony and a few other guys basically said, actually, we're gonna fork this. cryptocurrency called Monero. And I think that's an important lesson. One of the things I love about Monero is all of the projects you hear about today, all of them have some level of centralization, few exceptions. I mean, there are obviously centralization mining, but Bitcoin and Monero. Both of those projects have no foundations, there's no one attached to them. This has been a purely community effort, which I think is really unique and special. Yeah.
On the hardware wallet side, I mean, there's continued forever, Trezor, Ledger, some guys sold one.
Since we're talking, I'm still waiting for this.
Yeah, I mean, any other info besides
If you have
someday
a,
soon?
yeah, if you have a ledger, Career is a ledger. That's already live. You can use the banking tools. Well, it's live if you actually go into the command line for this app. I don't know. They've been saying it's been like right around the corner for months now. I know you've heard anything recent about it. Oh, no worries. Ledger?
Yeah, so Ledger is entirely out. It's working. The binaries for the 12.2 GUI were released this morning. And I believe
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure if you just go to the Monero subreddit and pull up the second sticky post, you'll be able to download the binaries and use it with Ledger. I think Ledger has to say something and post on their website, but as far as I'm aware, it's actually fully working.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's some of the best news I've heard. Cool. And I know there's also a crowdfunded hardware wallet Monero. I don't know if they've already released the specs for that.
I saw it when I was at C3. That was really cool. We met the
Oh, really?
yeah, the people who were building a hardware wallet.
What's it called?
Oh shoot. I can't remember what they decided the name. It may have been Trezoro, like the treasure in Esperanto, but I can't remember the name was.
So also I know Trezor on their Model T is, I don't know when exactly, but it's supposed to be also soon. Yeah, exactly. So, exactly. But yeah, that's something I'm really excited to hear because I've been waiting very patiently. So yeah.
Can I just do some quick demographic hands up?
Sure.
I'm curious what you guys. So I guess how many of you own cryptocurrency? Can I get a hands up? Pretty good. And then how many of you are new to Monero? Would you say then? Okay. And then I guess how many of you have used a cryptocurrency for something besides investing? Yeah. Cool. All right, carry on. I'm just curious what rooms like.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
Hopefully it's not too specific. So the anonymity of the sender is based off you matching the probability distribution of your history and time to network. Does that make it resistant to scaling to mass usage then? Because as you make different frequencies, like high frequency traders, you could then say, okay, that's that guy, we can identify him because they've got a different usage rate than the other one. And so by exclusion,
or even performance.
You could figure by exclusion, you'd be like, okay, that's the major player in the market, we can exclude.
I'm happy to link you to the Monero Research Lab's papers on this. There's a number of papers that have been written detailing these problems and how they're mitigated in the protocol.
Yeah. So do you guys think it's adequately mitigated?
Well, no, it'll never be adequately mitigated. It's a cat and mouse game, and we're constantly probably going to be working towards perfect privacy.
Yeah.
That's my view.
I think whoever drops a framework that lets people do basic quantum encryption, like I think Google should stop fucking around and put out the actual stuff they've done with the quantum secure Chrome connections. And an SSD, we need a high speed SSD in memory VM.
I'm not convinced quantum computing is actually going to come to fruition.
Well, I am convinced because I know the Google guys use it to break SHA.
Okay.
So I am convinced.
Or quantum random
numbers.
Yeah. Truly random, not just
Exactly. Yeah, and I think in general, like if any of you guys, I highly recommend going to the Monero Research Labs. Like those papers, if you want to dive in, are like pretty thorough.
So what is the Monero Research Lab?
So these are basically folks that are, I believe some of them are funded through the crowdfunding system for Monero. Some of them are full-time researchers, full-time contributors that are looking at these kinds of theoretical questions.
The people who we've actually funded through the community are cryptography and math PhDs. They basically, anybody can go field questions. You can go to the IRC channel and field hashtag Monero Research Lab with dashes between it. And you're a member of the Monero community. You can say, oh, hey, can you tell me where I can find info on this? Or does this make sense? And that's what they're there for.
Would you say regarding community, where should people go?
Definitely the subreddit or IRC. Those are the two places where, the majority of discussion happens, and then there's an initiative to get the Mattermost, which is an open source Slack alternative, popular. So
Telegram has a lot too.
what?
Telegram has a lot.
Oh
too.
yeah, Telegram has a lot too, but none of the
Technical
technical.
difficulty. Being honest.
Just theirs. You said IRC.
Yes.
What does that stand for?
Internet relay chat.
Telegram tends to be a bit more trolling.
It's a different demographic.
Cool. Any other questions for the group? Otherwise, this has been awesome. So you guys should feel free. There's a lot of people here. It's hot as hell. So feel free to step outside and get to know each other. I know selfishly I'm super stoked to have you. So thank you all so much for coming. It's been a pleasure. Oh, and by the way, thank you again. I said that at the beginning, but in case you guys are interested, those of you who came in late, so myself and a few other folks here, Dan, Brian, and Dan went working with a project called Tari Labs, which is working on Tari, a second layer digital assets protocol. So think anything, if you're going to have your concert tickets, your in-game video game purchases, reward points for flights, whatever, on top of Monero. So it's merged with with Monero. So if that's something interesting, feel free to come talk to me afterwards. Tari was also very, very cool in providing us with pizza and beer tonight. So, yeah, thanks. Thanks for everybody. It's the most asked question to get in the television.
No problem on my fault. I'm probably in the way. Sorry about that.
You have a LinkedIn? By the way, for anyone who wants to be involved, make sure you get your emails. Let's do it. Yeah, so that's the same guys.
Good on you, brother. I mean, I love you. I mean, you're so proud of the money and everything.
Everyone's talking about it. It's like, I've been telling you to buy it, and then it's like, when you buy it, it's like, this guy was like, I think it's like, it's like, you don't get paid. Are you like, are you